Hi there, church family. I'm going to be doing your devotional for this morning. I just pray and hope that it brings you encouragement in this time. So I'm going to be taking a passage from Hebrews 10. And as we know in Hebrews, there's a kind of number of warnings, but there's also a number of encouragement that follow those warnings. So I'm just going to be looking at a passage that explores one of those encouragements, and I'll just give you a couple of thoughts out of that afterwards. So we're reading from Hebrews 10, from 32 to 36. But recall the former days when, after you were enlightened, you endured a hard struggle with sufferings, sometimes being publicly exposed to reproach and affliction, and sometimes being partners with those so treated. For you had compassion on those in prison, and you joyfully accepted the plundering of your property, since you knew that you yourselves had a better possession and an abiding one. Therefore, do not throw away your confidence, which has a great reward. For you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the will of God, you may receive what is promised. Great. So obviously we don't know exactly who the writer of Hebrews is. That's not confirmed. And we also don't know exactly, the group of Hebrews that are being addressed in this passage either. But there are a few things that we do know about them. We know that they are believers. We know that they know Jesus. And we can see in this passage and others that they have experienced suffering as well. And so in a number of ways we can relate to them, being believers and having experienced suffering. We might not have experienced suffering exactly the same way as them, but I think we can all agree that all of us have experienced suffering previously at some point in our lives. And so in the beginning of this passage, we're looking at the past tense, recall the former days. You endured a hard struggle. And I find the use of past tense here helpful in two ways, really. It reminds us that we've suffered before. We have, and God has brought us through it. And B, it also reminds us that one day we are going to be looking back on this period. One day this period is going to be our past tense. So how do we want to view our behaviour and our actions in this time? The writer here talks about having compassion on those in prison. Maybe we don't know anyone personally who's in prison, but we do know a number of people who are isolated, feeling imprisoned perhaps at this time. How are we showing compassion? How can we show compassion to those people? And we know that they joyfully accepted the plundering of their property. So that's a challenge to us. How can we joyfully accept? How can we ask God to help us joyfully accept what is going on around us now? And the answer's in the passage, because we know, or because they knew, that you yourselves had a better possession and an abiding one. And I think the word abiding there is really key. However long this lasts, however long this period lasts, however long the effects on our business, our economy, our finances, our family, that will not be as long lasting as God's love for us. And I think I found a commentary where you'll have the reference provided, just a passage from a commentary that I found really helpful here. They knew that Jesus had made it possible for them to inherit better and lasting possessions, and this controlled their thinking about the present. So how does what we know about our future, how is that going to help us control our thinking around the present, control our thinking, control our behaviour, control our relationship with God and our attitudes? So therefore, and we know the power of the word therefore in the Bible. So taking all that into account, therefore, bearing all of this in mind, do not throw away your confidence, which has a great reward. So given all that we know, given all the suffering we've had before and that God has brought us through, given how we've managed that, given how God's brought us through that, let us not throw away our confidence now at this toughest of times. I hope that's been an encouragement to you this morning. And I hope you enjoy all the other devotionals that are going on at this time. Let's just pray. Lord, thank you for the message that you've brought us through Hebrews 10 this morning. I just pray that we are reminded of the lasting, abiding possessions that we have in you, Lord, that outlast anything that we're going through now, any of our struggles now. And I just pray that we use that understanding to control our thinking about the present, to control our thinking, our behaviour, our attitudes, and that we can look back on this time seeing how we were a witness to you, Lord. Amen.